The Omen of Shallow Falls. I never believed in the supernatural. As a rational person, I always looked for logical explanations. But what happened to me in Shallow Falls defied all logic and reason. It began on a rainy night in early October. I had just inherited an old creaky house from my late aunt, a house that had stood abandoned for years in the small town of Shallow Falls. The townspeople spoke of it in hushed tones, their eyes filled with an odd mix of fear and curiosity whenever they mentioned its name. They called it the Omen House. I dismissed their stories as mere superstitions and decided to move in, eager to start afresh after a messy divorce. I thought the solitude would help me find peace. Little did I know peace was the last thing I would find there. From the moment I set foot inside the house, I felt an unsettling presence. It was as if the house itself was alive, watching me, waiting for something. The first few nights were relatively quiet, save for the occasional creak of the floorboards and the whisper of the wind through the old, drafty windows. On the fourth night, things began to change. I woke up at 3:15 a.m. to a faint whispering. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but as I listened closer, I realized it was something else entirely. The whispers were rhythmic, almost chant-like, coming from the basement. Reluctantly, I grabbed a flashlight and made my way down the narrow, winding stairs. The basement was cold and damp, filled with old furniture covered in dusty sheets. The whispers grew louder as I approached an old wooden trunk in the far corner. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside the trunk was a collection of old photographs, yellowed with age. They depicted a group of people standing in a circle, their faces obscured by hoods. In the center of the circle lay a small, intricately carved stone idol. My heart pounded as I realized that the basement floor bore the same circular pattern etched into the ground. Suddenly, the whispers ceased, replaced by a deafening silence. The flashlight flickered and went out. Panic set in as I fumbled in the darkness, trying to find my way back upstairs. I felt a cold hand brush against my arm, sending a jolt of terror through my body. I bolted up the stairs, slamming the basement door shut behind me. The following day, I went into town to do some research. The local librarian, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hargrove, was surprisingly forthcoming. She told me about the house's dark history. According to her, my aunt had been part of a secret society that dabbled in occult practices. They believed the idol in the photographs was a conduit to another realm, a realm inhabited by malevolent entities. Mrs. Hargrove also mentioned a man named Reverend Carter, who had opposed the society and tried to cleanse the house of its evil. He disappeared mysteriously after his last attempt, and some say his spirit still lingers, trying to protect anyone who dares live there. Armed with this new information, I returned to the house, determined to get rid of the idol and put an end to the hauntings. That night, I ventured back into the basement. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent this time. I found the idol exactly where it was in the photographs, hidden beneath the trunk's false bottom. As I reached for it, the air grew colder, and a dark shadow loomed over me. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if I were being watched by countless unseen eyes. I grabbed the idol and bolted upstairs, hoping that destroying it would break whatever curse plagued the house. I took the idol to the backyard and smashed it with a hammer. For a moment, everything seemed to return to normal. The air felt lighter, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking it was finally over. But I was wrong. That night, I had the most vivid and horrifying dream. I was back in the basement, surrounded by the hooded figures from the photographs. They chanted in a language I couldn't understand, their voices echoing off the walls. In the center of the circle lay Reverend Carter, bound and gagged. As they chanted, his body convulsed, and a dark, shadowy figure emerged from him, its eyes glowing with malevolence.
I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart racing. The whispers were back, louder than ever, and this time they were accompanied by a soft, sinister laughter. The house felt alive with a dark energy, pulsating with malevolence. Desperate, I decided to leave Shallow Falls and never return. But as I packed my bags, I noticed something strange. The idol The one I had smashed to pieces was sitting on my bedside table, completely intact. Terrified, I ran out of the house only to be stopped by a figure standing at the gate. It was Reverend Carter. His eyes were hollow and his face was twisted in a grimace of pain and fear. "You can't leave," he whispered. "The house won't let you." I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet. When I looked up, he was gone. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. I realized then that I was trapped, just like my aunt and Reverend Carter before me. The house had claimed me. Now as I write this, I can hear the whispers growing closer. The shadowy figure from my dream is here, watching me, waiting. I don't know how much longer I have. If you find this note, please stay away from Shallow Falls. The Omen House is a place of darkness, and once it has you, it never lets go.